right, good afternoon there, guys, and welcome for a very special video update we're doing here over at Game Theory. So obviously we all know what's been going on with the market over the past, couple of weeks and really over the past month, and we've really been kind of getting our heads together as a team and taking a lot of feedback from different investors and large holders, people in the community, and really kind of formulating, okay, what can we do to help make game theory as successful as possible? And so we decided, and we're making some big decisions. So I wanted to share that with our community and with everyone who's involved with game theory. So the big news is that we have decided that we are going to migrate and we are going to move from the Phantom chain over to the Avalanche chain. So why we decided to make that decision was a number of different factors. If we kind of go over the timeline of what's been happening in kind of cryptocurrency in the wider world. Obviously, we had the global pandemic that's been happening over the past couple of years, and we've seen now the ripple effects of that affecting the stock market in the fact of seeing the rampant inflation across America and across a lot of the Western world from all of the money that got printed to try and help to mitigate the effects of everyone being locked down and so many businesses having to shut down. So we're seeing the stock market take a huge hit. As a result of that, we've seen that trickle down into the crypto market, where if we look at from the end of last year, Bitcoin hitting its all-time highs like $67,000, $68,000. Now it's below $30,000. So Bitcoin is at 50% of what it was, 6 months ago. And that's trickled down into all of the other chains. And if we look at how Phantom has been doing over that same time frame, if we go on to DeFi Llama and have a look at the different chains, we go back. Where are we? Cool. So if we go and look at October of end of last year, so if we see here, so on October 11th, 2021, Phantom was actually the third biggest EVM chain. They had a 5.6% market dominance. Obviously, Ethereum right at the front, Binance behind them, and then Phantom. You can see Solana, Terra, Avalanche, Polygon, Tron, all behind them. And if we look at where we are at today, now Avalanche is sitting in that third spot with a TVL of $6.49 billion. Solana's fourth, Tron is fifth, Polygon sixth, Kronos, and Phantom has actually dropped down to the number 8 spot with a TVL of $1.87 billion. So Avalanche is actually right now 3.5 times bigger than what Phantom is currently sitting at. And if you look at, obviously the whole market has been red, but if you look at over the last 1 month, of all of the chains that are in the top 20, Phantom has lost the second most amount of total value locked. So they're sitting at minus 72% over that time. Like Ethereum's down 35, Binance 34, Avalanche 62, Solana 40. So over there at 72 is Phantom. The only ones that have been hit harder has been Osmosis at 77%. And sadly, you see down here, Terra, which was obviously in the top 5, down 99.5%. So Phantom has really suffered a lot more than the majority of all of the other chains. And so kind of looking at the lack of new money coming on to the chain and looking at what we wanted for the future of game theory and kind of having us tied to the Phantom chain, we thought it was in the best interest of us to move over to chains. Obviously, the huge dip that hit Phantom was what happened with Andre and with Solidly. Obviously, someone with such a huge name and reputation, attracting a bunch of total value into the Phantom chain and then basically abandoning the chain and abandoning the project. And I don't think it's really recovered from that point. And we kind of all see why it's been hit so hard by the market dip compared to other chains. And so that's what we felt like the best thing for us to do was to move chains. And why do we pick the Avalanche chain? Well, you can see it's right now sitting at the number 3 spot. So almost $6.5 billion in total value locked, 3.5 times bigger than the Phantom chain. So that means that's 3.5 times more money for us to be able to have potential access to more users on that chain. Also, the reason why we picked Avalanche is because it's very friendly for game projects. So obviously DeFi Kingdoms is massive on the Avalanche chain, and they have their subnet, which is through the Avalanche chain now too, and they've been doing incredibly well. You also have Crabberland, Imperium Empires, and a number of other very successful blockchain games on that network. So it's less of having to kind of explain to people or get people used to playing blockchain games versus people who are already there. Also, because of that kind of community, they're very friendly towards GameFi-centered projects too, which is obviously huge for us, being that we're building that ecosystem of blockchain games. We also, having those subnets on Avalanche as well gives us potential in the future to potentially get onto one of those subnet chains as well. Like DeFi Kingdoms are looking actively for projects to bring onto their subnets. That's an option for us in the future. And the other things too is from technical perspective, it's an easy chain for us to be on because the RPC times, the block times, and the gas fees are all a lot more stable than they are on the Phantom network. For all of us who've been users on there, you can see that, at times the gas spikes up. You can see that it can be difficult to get transactions through at a certain time, and Avalanche is a lot more stable from that perspective. So for all of those different reasons, I think it's a very extremely compelling case and kind of a no-brainer for us to go onto the Avalanche chain. And I think it's going to give us a lot more potential for success, the blockchain that we're on. Not only that, so that's the one side of things, the chain that we're going to be on. The second part of it is that we're also going to be pivoting in terms of the model of game theory. So the fundamentals are going to be staying the same, in which we're still going to be building our ecosystem of blockchain games. Still got AlterGene, we've still got Angry Birds to come out. All of that is staying the same. But what we are going to be changing is our algorithmic stablecoin model. I think it doesn't really need a lot of explaining. What we all see in kind of Luna, Terra Luna, Terra Luna blockchain, Luna UST was by far the biggest algorithmic stablecoin like in crypto. They were a monstrous project. Like Anchor was one of the most well-known, safest, securest projects. And then you can see like with the snap of a fingers within a couple of weeks, lost almost the entire value of the entire blockchain, the entire ecosystem. And so looking at that, if a project that has that much institutional backing, that much money, everything behind it, they had billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin to try and support their peg, it still collapsed. A bank run happened on it. They lost all of their value. And so there's a lot of there's absolutely no confidence basically in algorithmic stablecoins generally moving forward. And we've got a lot of feedback. They'll just be a lot easier for us to be able to achieve the goals that we want without that stigma. Like when we were out, looking at partnerships, looking for marketing, there are certain bodies, certain groups that wouldn't even want to work with us just for the pure fact that we were an algorithmic stablecoin because they just didn't have faith or belief in the model. And I think that kind of the whole market is quite similar there too now after what's happened with Luna and the UST. And so we're going to be pivoting away from that model, going something a little bit more traditional. We're going to have one single token that's going to have those liquidity pools, and that one token is going to power our ecosystem, power all of our different blockchain games. So the things we're going to have with that, so we're going to have our single token. We're also building our own DEX. So we're going to have our own native DEX, which is huge for us because it means that all of the trading fees that are going to be happening for people buying and selling our token, they're going to be going to the protocol, which means that we can then use those fees to help support the protocol in terms of adding buy pressure onto our token. And it's also, we're going to be able to give some of those as dividends to our governance token holders as well. So we think that's going to be massive for us too. And we're going to be taking that model, and then it also means that we can then host other projects on our DEX and have a revenue sharing agreement with them, as opposed to like Trader Joe's, where obviously the revenue is just going to them. We would split that revenue with that project, and so we could have a project come and be hosted on our DEX, and they would be able to take a percentage of the trading fees would go to them and help to add buy pressure to their token, and a percentage of that would go to us and add buy pressure to our own token. So that's going to add an entirely new revenue stream for us that's completely independent of our games, that we think is going to be absolutely massive. Because if a protocol has a choice of going on, say, a Trader Joe's and not getting any part of the trading fees that's happening on that, or they can go with us and they can actually share in the revenue, give an extra source of buy pressure on their own token, get those tokens bought and burned. We think that's an extremely compelling case. We saw that other projects started to try and do that on the Phantom network, and it was really successful before they had the security issues. So we've seen that model, and it's already something we were planning to do with our games, having our own DEX. So adding that to what we're doing in terms of migration, we think that that is going to be absolutely massive for us. And the more projects that we can bring on board, the more volume is going through the DEX as a total. That just means that's more buy pressure that's being added onto our token, which is going to help support us over time as well. And we're not going to have those inflation issues that we had with a consistently expanding token with an algorithmic stablecoin. So we think that's going to be huge for us. We're also going to be adding a sales tax in with our token as well. We've seen that that's something that's a lot of different all the Titano folks have used that has been very helpful in terms of adding stability to them. Obviously, a lot of them are like pretty much Ponzi's, but for us, we're going to be taking that and we're going to make the sales tax tied to liquidity and tied to time. So basically, the size of the sell versus the size of the liquidity pool is going to dynamically adjust to basically protect all of our investors and protect the protocol from someone dumping an enormous amount of our tokens relative to the size of the liquidity pool. So we think that's something that's going to provide a ton of stability for us and protect all of our investors. We're also going to still have our governance token, so that's going to be migrated over instead of the increase in those wrap tokens coming from the treasury fees like before. They're going to come from the fees coming from our DEX now, but it's still going to be the same concept, people locking up their tokens to share in profits of the protocol. So the master token holders are still going to get those same benefits. We're also going to be migrating over all of our NFTs, exactly the same philosophy as before, is that our Gen 0 and our Gen 1 NFT holders are going to get the financial benefits from getting boosted staking rewards from the liquidity pools, and then they're also going to get all the bonuses from being a part of our game. So the governance token is still going to be the same, the NFTs are still going to be the same. Really, from a tokenomics perspective, the core difference is consolidating. Instead of having multiple tokens and having our liquidity split across multiple different pools, it's going to be the one token and the one pool. So we're not going to have those same inflation issues, we're not going to have the split liquidity issues. Everything's just going to be in the one token through the liquidity pools, and we think that's going to provide us a ton more stability. Plus, we're going to have our DEX, and we're going to have those sales taxes. So those are really the two the two massive changes we're making, which is migrating over to the Avalanche chain and then changing our tokenomics. So going away from the algorithmic stablecoin model to having a single token model, having our DEX and having the constant buy and burn pressure that's going to come from all the trading fees for us, and then any tokens that we're hosting, as well as adding that sales tax to be able to help protect the token, to protect our investors from massive dumps from bad actors. Now, in terms of what that's going to look like what the schedule will be, so it's made a little graphic that we're going to share after this call. So 5 stages to our expansion plan. So the first is a snapshot. So that's something that has already happened because we didn't want our investors to get front run by anyone. So a snapshot has been taken of all of our holders across every token. So across the game DAI liquidity pool, the theory DAI liquidity pool, single holding either of those tokens, our HODL holders and our master holders. So all of that has been taken. The next step is that we're going to be releasing the full details of all of the tokenomics of our new token and the new platform. I've given you guys the majority of it now, but the specific details of all of that, we're going to have a Medium article that's going to be released about that, have an announcement. I'm going to do another video where I'm just going to deep dive and going over those tokenomics, and we're going to be building obviously all of the infrastructure for that. Next thing is the DEX, so we're going to be getting that all built up and ready for us. The part after that is then getting the master token ready to be able to get migrated over to the Avalanche network. And then the 5th thing is getting AlterGene. So we're going to be just getting that ready again to port it over from Phantom over to Avalanche, as well as optimizing all of the gas usage with AlterGene. So that's kind of the 5 steps. Our goal in terms of timeline is by the end of next week is to have all of this completed, to have us migrated over to the Avalanche network, new token being live, trading, the DEX, everything being built and ready to go. So we've really obviously been closely looking at what's been happening with the market, what's been happening. And so we feel that getting this done as quickly as possible is the best thing for our community and all of our investors to be able to get the most out of it, because we're really excited about what we're building here over at Game Theory. But obviously the market conditions, the network that we're on, we feel like that has a huge contributing factor, and just the general model itself. Like, one of the biggest issues that we had was the constant inflation going into the system and trying to balance that. Now that's not going to be something we're going to have to worry about, and so we can really let the protocol grow naturally over time as we get more users for our game. And then we think having this second revenue stream coming from having our own native DEX and not giving away those trading fees to Spooky Swap or to Trader Joe's, and really using them to benefit the protocol, and then allowing us to form partnerships with other projects who also want to be able to share in the revenue that coming from those trading fees. We think that's massive for us, and it just means that there's no limit to how many projects that we can have as a part of our DEX. So the more projects that we have, the more popular those projects are, the more money that we're sharing in that revenue, and the more we're going to be able to support our own token, support our own game development and our plans moving forward. So this is the expansion kind of plan over there. So yeah, to just to summarize again there, guys, so we've been talking to all of our investors, looking at the market, looking at our plans, looking at kind of the strengths and weaknesses of the project and the ecosystem. And we feel like for all of our investors and for all the goals we want to hit long term, the best thing for us to do is to pivot at this time, go from a chain that unfortunately has just been losing more and more value over time, and go to a chain which is sitting in the number 3 spot among all of the EVM chains that has held really well through the market downturns, and who we think has just a ton of potential for moving forward in the future, a chain that already has a lot of very successful games on that chain, so has people who are already in the mindset of wanting to play games. A project like DeFi Kingdoms, who we were always mirrored on from the start. We took a lot tokens we took from them, and so we took a lot of inspiration from what DeFi Kingdoms were doing in the first place. A chain that's a lot more stable in terms of RPC, gas fees, block times, and migrate over to that chain. And then probably even bigger than the chain that we're going to be on is editing our own tokenomics and our own model, moving away from the algorithmic stablecoins. Like if we actually go over to look at all of the different tomb forks, algorithmic stablecoins, you can just see like across the board from a kind of a height of $1.6 billion, that's now sitting at 349 million. Tomb Finance itself, which was once $1 billion project, is sitting at $36 million locked. Savannah was $500 million, now it's 95 million. You can see all of these projects that one time had a ton of total value locked across the board, they've dropped off. Obviously, the entire market that's happened to, but these algorithmic stablecoins have been hit particularly hard, and they all face the same issue of that constant inflation going into the system. And it's almost like you're battling against yourselves. So we just looked at that. We got the feedback, spoke to a lot of our investors, and they were just like, why put ourselves in a situation where our tokenomics is making life more difficult for ourselves versus having the tokenomics support us and help us achieve our goals and help our investors and not have that constant dilution happening. So we're going to pivot, go away from that two token model, go away from the algorithmic stablecoin model. Just let us have a market determined price, that there's a normal amount of tokens out there that's not constantly inflating over time. And then as well as that, having the DEX paired to that so that we're getting the benefit of our own trading fees, and we can then offer that service to other protocols, which means that we don't just need to rely on like other seniority protocols or other game projects. Any project that's on the Avalanche network can then go onto our DEX, and obviously over time our plan is not just to stay on one chain but expand and do that. And that's just a very compelling feature to have for any project, to have those trading fees not just go to a third party DEX and do nothing for them, but actually actively benefit the project itself. So these are the plans we got going on as well there, guys. Obviously, we're going to be in the Discord. We're going to be giving way more information out about all of these specifics over time. Again, in terms of timeline, our goal is to have the project fully migrated over to the Avalanche network by the end of next week. We're going to give you guys constant updates on exactly where we're at with all those different processes. We've already taken the snapshot. So for all of our investors, those tokens that you hold, they're going to be able to just transition and transfer those tokens over. So if you have, and in terms of how that's going to work, if you're a liquidity pool token holder right now, the stablecoin that we're going to be pairing with over on Avalanche is going to be USDC. And we're also going to have another pool that we're going to release, which is going to be paired with AVAX. So it's going to be our token paired with USDC. So anyone who holds either Game DAI liquidity pool tokens or Theory DAI liquidity pool tokens will just be able to exchange those tokens and in return get our token and USDC liquidity pool tokens. Anyone who's single holding Theory tokens will be able to exchange them and get our token. Anyone who has HODL tokens, they'll be able to exchange the HODL tokens for our new token, but at a premium, because obviously by bonding, they showed more belief longer term in the product, so they're going to get our token plus a small bonus. Anyone who is a master token holder who's making that year-long commitment to the project, they're going to get our new tokens plus a huge bonus that is commensurate to the belief they showed in the project by locking up their tokens with us for a year. So liquidity pool token holders will get to swap their tokens with the new liquidity pool tokens. Single token holders will get to swap their tokens with our new token. HODL token holders will swap our token with the new token plus a bonus. Master holders will swap master for our new token plus a large bonus as well. So that's how it's going to work. But again, we're going to be releasing all of this information again in detail. Obviously, we know that's a lot to all go through like in just like one message in one call. So we're going to have like at least a week over there to kind of give you all this information, get everyone ready for it. But we think that we've had a ton of conversations. We've consulted with a lot of people who have tremendous amount of experience in DeFi, and we got the same feedback over and over and over again that just the algorithmic stablecoin model in general, something that is quite tough, and you can just see the performance of the algorithmic stablecoins in general, way before even the market crash of the last kind of 2-3 weeks, but just in general over the last 6 months, there's just been a constant drain and drop off since kind of the heights when Tomb first launched and when 2Ohm first launched. All these projects have just done nothing but drop down over time. And the feedback we just got was of the algorithmic models, how they work in general, and then specifically after everything that's just happened with Luna and with UST, it's just kind of that if a project with that much money behind it, that much institutional backing, if that project can fail, then how can another project do better given that model? So we just thought that for the best for all of our investors, for the best for game theory moving forward, the best thing to do was to go away from that model. And also the best thing for us was to go to a chain that is a lot healthier, 3.5 times bigger, so give us access to way more investors. And we think that this is going to be huge for us. We think that we're really going to be able to kick on from this, go way higher than we ever were at our height before with the improved tokenomics, with the new chain. And so we're really excited about all of this moving forward. We're going to be around obviously in the Discord right now, so anyone has questions, we can go through it in more detail with you guys. We're going to have multiple different AMAs coming. We're going to have a more informal, like actual AMA where you guys can just ask specific questions and we can go through and give you all of that versus a more formal video like this one. And then we're going to, as we have the information about the tokenomics, we'll release that out, about the decks. Everything's going to be moving forward. And then obviously once we have this official date, when the migration has happened, we're going to open up those channels, give people the opportunity to exchange their tokens for the new tokens before we launch over on Avalanche. But yeah, we wanted to obviously let you guys know about that. We're really excited about this, guys. We think this is going to be absolutely massive for us. We think that having these changes will then give us the perfect platform so that we can then go and kick on and build our games. We're really excited about the Angry Birds game that we have coming out. Like, we think that we're making a ton of changes to it from the original game. We're going to make it a lot more social, a lot more expansive, and we think it's going to be really popular, really enjoyable, and be a great source of revenue too for the project. Next, we have our turn-based RPG game, which is based on Final Fantasy. We're even more excited about that because it's going to be a bigger game, and we think we're going to be able to attract a huge community from that. And obviously we still have Brutal Network. There's a bunch of other games we want to build. So we're really excited about the roadmap we have. We're really excited about the direction that we're heading in. And we think making these two big changes is just going to give us all of the foundations that we need to really kick off and make game theory an enormous project on the Avalanche blockchain. So thanks everyone so much for tuning in there, guys. I'm going to be heading over to the Discord channel right now. So if anyone has any questions,